more inclusive for everyone. We ask participants to follow the different principles and commit to them as we start to build our racial literacy together. So the first principle is around acknowledging emotions. So we often like to think about different issues like racism in an intellectual way. We like looking at the data, we like doing the research and engaging our brains. But actually, it's also really important to engage our hearts and understand why racism is an issue, how it occurs, and also experience a lot of the different emotions racism can bring. So thinking about compassion, but also the hurt, the anger, the fear that comes with racism. So during conversations about racism that can be very difficult, we ask participants to take a note of their emotions on their reflective journals, for example, and trying to ask why we might be experiencing those emotions will actually lead to deeper learning. For participants of color, Black, Asian, and minority ethnic educators as well, it's important to recognize that some of those emotions might be linked to things like racial trauma. And for white majority ethnic participants, there might be some discomfort there around the emotions we experience. Brings us on to the second principle, which is around embracing productive discomfort. In any conversation about race, it's normal to actually experience some discomfort. And so it's really helpful to lean into that discomfort as much as possible, especially for white majority ethnic participants, educators. It's quite common to experience that discomfort. But for particularly participants of color, that discomfort can become distress if we're thinking about racial trauma. And that's where we ask participants to step back and commit to their self-care, really ask themselves what they need to be doing to stay committed to anti-racism in the long run. There's often a risk of burning out or being too emotionally drained. So that's another principle that comes into our program, the commitment to self-care. The final two principles are around building relationships. So we're more likely to engage in anti-racism and be more productive in our efforts if we're actually trying to build relationships and call people in rather than pointing fingers and calling them out. And if we see the capacity for growth in everyone, both ourselves, we might be making mistakes in our efforts or in our conversations, but actually mistakes are part of any learning journey. We need that growth mindset. And we also need to view others as having the capacity to grow, to learn from their mistakes and make things better. So those are the principles that help the building racial literacy as a safer, braver learning space.